Hello there, Qckslvrslash, and today we have a video courtesy of Reckless Sneak driving the Tier 8 premium German battleship, the Tirpitz. And thinking about it, it's been a while since I've featured a Tirpitz game on my channel. And it was one of those early ships that I really fell in love with. My first video ever, in fact, was in a Tirpitz. And one of the things that makes it so strong is having those torpedoes. You can get yourself into situations where you're really in over your head and bail yourself out with a good torpedo spread and some well-placed shots. But before I jump into the game, I just want to update you guys on a couple things. First, the contest, tons of responses, so expect the draw sometime tomorrow. Secondly, yesterday I was on the Warships podcast along with Trevzor as the other guest, and it was a lot of fun. You know, we talked for like an hour and a half about various aspects of the game, a bit about the French cruisers, but they're not saying too much yet, and just some overall things about what their plans for the game are. The other thing that they brought up, and I'm going to bring up because I believe it's a really good cause, is right now Wargaming's got their the Wargaming Canine Salute, and they've picked a charity that takes sheltered dogs and trains them to be service animals for veterans suffering from PTSD or anything kind of like that, where, you know, they need a service animal. And it's a good cause, and for every tweet, Wargaming is donating $1. And as Trevzor said it, it's not entirely just about how much money they can donate, but spreading the awareness. There's countless programs like this, and, you know, you really can't stop naming them. There's veterans around the world who have done a lot for their countries, and sometimes they need support too. And I know one or two people myself who actually have service animals, and it's made a world of difference for them. And a big part of it just comes down to that companionship, but the dogs are also trained to recognize when they're having an anxiety attack or anything like that, and can step in and actually really calm an individual down. So if you've got a Twitter account, all you do is go on, hashtag Wargaming Canine Salute, throw a picture of your dog in there if you've got one, and Wargaming's going to donate some money to a good cause, and it helps raise awareness. So just putting that out there, it'll be in the description as well, and yeah, I hope a lot of people help spread the word on this. Anyways, with all of that kind of out of the way, a lot of the games actually already happened. Reckless there got a Citadel on a pretty easy target. Side-on cruiser at like 12 kilometers. You never really know what some people are thinking when they make decisions to go where they go on the map, and that's a really solid hit on the Tirpitz. 249.88 hits, so just about 10 grand damage. And one thing I find a lot of people really feel is that the German battleships can't be Citadel, period, and that's just not true. I know I've covered this before. The turtleback armor is really good and close because of how it's angled, still vulnerable to plunging fire. And if you are at those closer ranges where, you know, you're going to get those ricochets off the turtleback, you just aim a little higher. And using Reckless Sneak's ship, where I typically aim is kind of for this deck right here, and I want to hit the base of the superstructure or even the very upper part of the deck, because you can kind of see where the main belt runs, and you can definitely see it in port, and it's very effective. Not quite as effective as two Citadels on that Atago there, and first kill. And one of the things I find kind of perpetually interesting is RNG plays a lot with these German battleships. Their accuracy isn't quite as good, and oh my god, Reckless Sneak just ate a ton of damage, like 18,000 damage there. And the other point I should point out is the other good place to aim is if this part of the bow is flat, just put shells in there. You'll get penetrating damage, and it'll hurt. So you can kind of see right now, Reckless Sneak has decided it's time to get out of here. He's got a stationary Fiji, fires at his last known position in the smoke. Will it be good enough? And Yes, it is another Citadel. Already up to 4 and just about 70,000 damage. And I really hate on trap when I see teams do this. Reckless's entire team has pushed down to A, and they've run into some resistance, but not the entirety of the enemy fleet, and these guys have all kind of just stopped in the south. And it means Reckless and the couple guys who kind of came towards B are left a little alone. Now, his only real option is to get out of here, hopefully get some damage in on the way out. He's got a Shiratsu, he's looked a little far behind, probably going to miss, and they do. And there's a Belfast there, that's what I'd be looking for. He's side on just over the hump of that island. I think he could lob the shells in there potentially. But by the time he gets his guns there, Belfast slips just a little too far behind. And right now, for Reckless, things don't look too hot. He's down to maybe a fifth of his health. Thankfully, he still has 3 more repair parties. And a lot of his damage has been fairly minor damage, which means it's going to be repairable. So in situations like this, in your battleship, you just have to pull away, you know, calm down, take a few breaths, wait the 1 or 2 minutes to cycle through at least a couple repairs, get your health back up to that 50% mark, and then you can rejoin the battle. You can see that repair just finished, and already the next chunk will take him up to over 50% health, or at least right around it. And too often, I think battleships overcommit early. And in my opinion, if you're not running through at least 2 or 3 of those repair parties, you've done something wrong and putting yourself in a position where you haven't maximized the potential health pool of your ship. And these shells on the Belfast are looking good, 8,000 damage, half of his health gone. 1 more volley should take care of him. That'll be a good ship to get rid of. Now the Belfast is a very popular and ranked, and it's because it's got the radar and smoke, but the one thing it is missing that I think really puts the Fiji on top, in particularly in random battles, is the Belfast doesn't have that repair party. Which means you combine the super thin British armor and not being able to at least recover some of that health, it's not nearly as long of a staying power ship. So they can definitely get themselves in trouble early, and they've got no way to bail themselves out. And I like what Reckless did. He's gotten to the south side of the map, put some teammates between him and the enemies, and he's allowed himself to recover a bit of HP. And it's going to be important, because things right now are pretty balanced. The enemy team is running ahead with the score. They've got 2 of the caps, they're contesting the 3rd one, so, you know, just slowly inching ahead. And the actual kills are pretty much even. And it looks like finally down in this kind of southwestern corner that things are happening. But they're not happening because Reckless's team pushed way up. It's actually because, for some reason, the enemy team pushed down. And I think that's a big misplay by that enemy team. If they had just kind of remained to the north here, they could have kept pretty much the entirety of Reckless's team corralled here in the south, doing nothing until it was too late. But by charging down, they've kind of thrown themselves away. And once again, cruiser side on, 10 or 11k. That's a easy shot. Unfortunately, it looks like they went just a little high, and it kind of sucks. I mean, he managed to hit that guy in the smoke. It just hurts that he didn't get him there. So, personally, what I would be doing right now is I would be talking to my buddy. He's in a division with another Tirpitz, and it looks like his name is, I'll just call him Dave. So, I would be talking to Dave, and I'd be wanting to spin 180. As 2 big top-tier ships, you definitely have the punch to be able to do that. And against a Fiji and Colorado, you stand an incredibly good chance of getting some big damage in and some kills. Now it does look like there is a destroyer somewhere here in the middle, so that changes things a little bit. Now, not as interested as charging in at those two ships. And I suppose looking a little more in depth at the map, you could predict that he's over there somewhere because his last known position was up with those two ships. But if the team scores weren't kind of so lopsided as far as kills, I'd be getting a little worried in this game. Since Reckless's team has the majority of the kills and isn't too far down on points, I think this more passive strategy kind of could work. The enemy team seems more than content enough to come charging at the bulk of Reckless's team, and they're coming in that good old-fashioned kind of one by one. They're not a united front, so they're getting caught out alone. And this enemy Tirpitz is kind of a good idea. He's got 5 or 6 different ships potentially shooting at him, and he's not far enough away to really, protect himself just by range and difficulty of actually hitting. And, of course, most warship games aren't complete without a couple teammates running into each other, and I do not like what that Nagato did. You've got to be aware, driving into one another was just, I think both of them kind of tunnel visioning a bit, but if you're grinding up against a ship, don't fire your guns. There's a ship right beside you. And ends up lighting a fire on Reckless there that he has to repair, because I think that was actually the second fire burning on him, and you really don't want that going for too long. And this Nagato just kind of keeps seeming to turn in. Which, it always gets frustrating when you have a player doing that. Clearly in their mind they think you're the crazy one, and in your mind you think they're the crazy one. And, Reckless did turn off a fair amount, and that Nagato just kept eating up all the space Reckless was creating. And this is the point where, with an enemy Tirpitz, I'd be starting to get worried. You're at 8 kilometers, it's very easy to close 2 kilometers of distance to get torps into the water. Now fortunately, Reckless has some of his own, so that kind of negates it a bit, but both that enemy Tirpitz and Reckless are actually on fairly low health. And you'll notice there when the Fiji did go unspotted, and it's a little unfortunate that, not going to see if his shells would hit, but Reckless didn't just fire in kind of one position. He led his guns kind of walking forward. And that's a really good strategy, because when you normally aim at a ship, unless you've got it unchecked, your guns track at the target of the ship. So when you suddenly lose spotting, if you just fire all your shells in the one spot, the way your gun works, because it's no longer tracking, is you kind of take away a lot of the chance for some of your later shells to hit the target, because they're just going to be way underlit. So you've got to kind of slowly strafe your guns forward if you're firing in, kind of succession fire like that. Bit of a close call there with his division mate, but they managed to avoid one another, and things kind of just continued to slowly progress. 4 ships left on the enemy team, and some friendly torpedoes get a little close for comfort there, but they do miss, so all's well that ends well. And this enemy Tirpitz should be dead. Personally, I would be angling in a little more, just because of that Colorado. You don't want to sit side on to 2 ships, and with that Tirpitz on the kind of health he has, you're not so worried about getting all 4 guns, and he picks up his second kill. 110,000 damage in, 2 kills, and 3 ships remaining. So theoretically, there's a Kraken on the board if he can make this work. And the next ship that's spotted is that Belfast that he looked to be the last one to hit until just there, and you really only need one of these to connect, and okay, 2. Gets a pair of overpens and another kill, leaving 2 enemies, and he's up to 3 and inching closer to that Kraken. So definitely in the realm of possibility. Unfortunately, he has used all his repair parties. And when I kind of talk about maximizing health, this is exactly it. Like, when you think about using the 4 or 5 repair parties he had, that's an entire another ship worth of HP that he's gone through. And if he didn't hang around like that and died early in the game, it's kind of wasted health. And obviously, the kind of big threat here is that enemy destroyer. It's hard to say exactly where he is, and that can make it hard, you know. Battleships are tricky ships to drive in late game, particularly when the couple things you have to chase are destroyers or cruisers that are well driven and have torpedoes, because if you're going hunting, you're forced to drive in, and well, I think this is going to spell the end of the game for that Colorado. He got hit hard by a friendly, and Reckless finishes him off, gets the 4th kill, leaving just a destroyer, which means if Reckless gets him, he's got his Kraken. He's up to 123,000 damage, and we know where the destroyer is. He is somewhere in Bravo, and my guess is he's sitting right on the other side of this island, waiting for an ambush. Late game like this, you know, there's kind of 2 ways you can play a destroyer. Personally, if I were that DD, I would be running. You still have a points lead. There's not a ton of time left. Even on 1 cap, you're going to keep running ahead, and by the time Reckless's team gets this cap, it's probably too late to close the points difference. And 2 minutes doesn't leave a ton of time to get all the way to Charlie to affect that. So if you just kept proceeding, running away, stay out at the absolute outer range, and throw torpedoes, I think you could have it. And he just doesn't decide to do that. You can see the smoke there. Here come the torpedoes. I think this destroyer on the enemy team has made a bit of a misplay, and it may cost him the game here. Hard to say yet. I mean, he's still unspotted. And as you can see, Bravo's being capped, but with 2 minutes left, I don't think that's a point cap. 1 cap, 2 minutes, it's like 60 points a minute, I think. 3 every 5. So, or no, not 60. That's like 30 something a minute. So there's not really a way to close that point gap. So he just has to stay alive. That's all he has to do. And so far, he seems to be doing it. We know he's not in the smoke because Reckless is spotted again. But there's a Fubuki and a Shores and a couple other big ships hot on his trail. And these are the points where RPF is really useful. This is one of the only situations that RPF is fairly useful. And even then, you kind of know where he is. You just don't know exactly where he is. And, you know, it's all quiet. It's that eerie calm, just waiting for something to happen. Yeah, at this point, if I were Reckless's team, I'd be worried. It's looking more and more like that enemy DD is doing exactly what he needs to be doing. He's still unspotted, and he's still 40 points ahead. 30 seconds left. It's going to come down to the wire here. And for Reckless, there's a Kraken on the line. If he can get a shot in at this destroyer, get the kill, he's got his Kraken. And there he is. And I feel bad for this Shratsu, because here comes the kill shot. And it was definitely a well-played game on Reckless Sneak's part. 683,000 credits, 6,400 experience, Dreadnought, Kraken Unleashed, Devastating Strike, and First Blood, 125,000 damage, and he managed to get the 5 kills right at the end of the game. And not to undersell Reckless, but that Shratsu messed up. He just had to run away. And I think there were enough people that he would have gotten Solar Warrior too. by just holding out for the rest of the game. Shratsu is quick enough, its concealment is good enough, but I think he spent too much time weaving back and forth, ate a lot of his speed up, and allowed Reckless's destroyer to catch up, and then Reckless took one shot and made it count. And top of the team, 2,143 experience, and you can see his division mate right behind him in second place. Always great when you're playing into division and it works out like that, like kind of the 1, 2, 3. And all in all, I thought the team played not too terrible a game. I would have liked to have seen them push into A, but because the enemy team decided to, it worked out in the end. And you can see where Reckless's damage was. A lot of it was that enemy Tirpitz, which is important. Another high-tier battleship, definitely have to get the damage in. And then that Atago at the start, I think 3 citadels total on him, and he just insisted sailing side on. And you can't do that in a cruiser. You just can't. And the Atago is a really good ship when sailed correctly. And because the Tirpitz is a premium, he managed to take home 568,000 credits and 6,400 experience, 21,000 for the captain. Anyways, thank you very much, Reckless, for sending this one in. Anyone else who would like to send one in, Qckslvrslash@gmail.com. Just a reminder, if you have Twitter, throw that picture up with hashtag WGK9salute. I'll put the hashtag in the description just so people get it right. Costs you nothing and it sends $1 to a good cause. And if you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing or giving the video a thumbs up. Both very much help the channel out. And as always, I'm Qckslvrslash, and I'll have another one for you guys tomorrow.